For those that don't know me, I'm Kevin McClendon, co-founder and somehow co-CEO of Proximate. For those that don't know Proximate, first off, how did you get here? And second, thanks for joining us. Proximate is a movement-led nonprofit media platform advancing conversations around lived experience leadership. We create stories about participatory problem solving, which is a phrase that I will one day be able to say without it being a tongue twister. And hopefully that same time will come when we see our theory of change actualized. Systems are reformed and decision-making power is shifted to those with firsthand understanding of an issue or those proximate to the problem. While I myself first came aboard Proximate back in January of last year, we officially launched to the public in October of 2023. Since then, we have released 90 plus stories, eight, nine as of today, newsletters, to an audience of 15,000 readers in over 100 countries. One of those countries was a single reader in Seychelles, which is the smallest country in Africa, and they read one of my admittedly few articles, which made my English major seem slightly less embarrassing when I go home for Thanksgiving, but not by much. All of this has happened in a very few short months. Sorry. All of this has happened in a very few short months, which is just enough for my son to be very annoying. And that is what we're here to celebrate today. Here is our agenda for today. We'll be walking through our past by sharing our origins, talking about our present through speaking on Proximate today and the roadmap of first that we've achieved. And then we'll talk about our future, exploring what's next and how you can get involved. I can see no better person to kick us off and celebrate and Proximate than one of the very few people who literally wrote the book on the subjects we're going to be exploring. So here is the co-founder of Proximate, Associate Director of Policy and Communications at Social Finance, and person with the most eyeglasses I have ever met, Meg Massey.
Thank you, Kevin. That is possibly the best way I've ever been introduced. Hi, everyone. I'm Meg Massey. I use she, her pronouns. And as Kevin said, I'm a co-founder of Proximate and a co-author of Letting Go, which Ben Roble and I published in 2021. And we also, through the course of writing Letting Go, we ended up on the ground floor of the founding of the participatory grant-making community at participatorygrantmakers.org. If you haven't been part of that, I encourage you to join. It's a great resource. So Proximate today, Ben and I, as we were iterating on this idea for Proximate, we found Kevin and invited him to join our little club of crazy people who sit with laptops and dogs and talk about this stuff and come up with ideas. We convened this incredible advisory board. A number of these members are on the call today. And you'll be thanked many times over the course of this conversation, but just want to reiterate that from us. And with that, I am going to transition it back to Kevin to talk a little bit more about the roadmap and where Proximate has where Proximate is now going.
Thank you so much, Meg. Another thing I want to talk about is, as you see here, are our three core verticals, our three Proximate Place newsrooms, which are our regional reporting, and two of our columns and some of our special collections, working it and localizing loss and damage. So thank you for that, Meg. Please don't get too comfortable. We'll be right back to you. Next, what I'm going to be going through is some of the journey for our last 9 months. We're going to do this by focusing on our first. As you see here, we have our first vertical, our first media partner, our first columnist, and our first regional newsroom. We'll be hearing for a bunch of cool speakers on each of those. Before I dive into that, though, I do want to address that my other lovely co-founder and co-CEO, Ben Roble, is currently flying from dry, hot, and lovely Phoenix to wet, warm, and lovely Seattle to host an event with Magic Cabinet. This is perfect because Magic Cabinet was actually our first funder, and the event that they're having today is for grassroots grant making, which was the very first newsletter we managed to get out.
So Grassroots Grant Making is the newsletter for the philanthropy vertical of Proximate. It's one of three that we currently have. We'll talk more about that later on. It's also one of our most popular, I think, because we really originated with Letting Go being about philanthropy and impact investing and the participatory models in those spaces, and then our work with the participatory grant making community. So we've consistently had incredibly strong content coming from this, coming out of this vertical. We've put out 3 grassroots grant making newsletters so far. 2 of the stories in particular that I want to highlight here because I think they represent the journalism that we're really aspiring to, are the stories on the Ukrainian activists taking on big philanthropy, and on the Sohail Assad interview on the situation in Palestine. Obviously, the ongoing war in Ukraine and the conflict in Gaza, those are huge, huge news stories. Many, many words have been written about them. And one thing that we've known from the time we founded Proximate is we want to be able to talk about this global movement for participatory decision making, for investing in communities as leaders in determining their own destinies. And how does that apply when you're talking about these, again, like big global conflicts, news stories? What is the story that Proximate can tell that is different from what is already being reported? We're not breaking news here, but we are applying this lens to stories that our readers might already be familiar with. So for kind of an example of the type of journalism that we want to continue doing and continue building on, the stories on Ukraine and Palestine, I'd really recommend as your first reading. We have there are obviously many others in that vertical, which you can Kevin has linked in the chat that you can check out. But as we continue to build Proximate, there are major things happening all over the world, and sometimes those stories aren't being covered at all, and it's our responsibility to find them and lift them up. And other times it is a story that people are familiar with, but we're able to tell it in a different way. So that is that's I think what's really critical about grassroots grant making.
Thank you so much, Meg. Yes, that is Grassroots Grant Making, or a little bit about the first edition. Grassroots Grant Making is one of our core vertical newsletters, thankfully sponsored by Magic Cabinet. It is now being released every month and is led by Ben himself. If you want to sign up for Grassroots Grant Making or any of our other newsletters, please feel free to do so at the link there. You can choose Grassroots Grant Making in particular or check out all of them. Next, we are going to return back to Mentimeter. For those who have just joined us, we are using Mentimeter to do kind of like an audience survey of sorts. Feel free to scan the QR code that you see on your screen or type in menti.com and use the code there at the top. And that question will be, what other organizations or stories should we write about? You don't have to think too hard for this. It's not a quiz, just list and jot down some organizations that you think are doing cool participatory problem solving things or interesting stories that you've heard that relate to those sort of things there. And I will give people a bit of time to respond here.
And I'll just interject and say that this piece of this getting ideas, this is really core. Proximate, as Kevin is going to speak about later, is about the community. It's not one person. It's not even one part of the world. So we and again, Kevin will go into this in more detail, but we're actively working to just make sure that we are always in conversation with different communities, and that we are, that they are the leaders. And so we take ideas and run for them. There's ways to formally pitch stories, but we want to be in constant community. I just know Ben would want to really underscore that if he was here, so I'm kind of channeling him a little.
That's absolutely true. We will be talking about it later. In September, we're launching Proximate Commons, which, yes, is our way to exemplify how much we care about making sure we listen to our audience, our community, and that we're a movement-led organization. We're not trying to define what people need to hear. We're trying to speak on what people want to hear. Yes. So speaking of our want to hear from other organizations and hear from audiences, we love working with other mission-aligned media platforms. I'm happy to have one of those media platforms, two of them actually, here with us today. And one of them will be speaking, representing what was our first media partnership. She is Camille Alejandra Padilla Dalmau. Camille is the founder of Nueve Millones, an independent news network in Puerto Rico that creates solutions journalism on climate justice, social equity, and community engagement in Puerto Rico. Camille, can you take a moment to tell us about the work and how our partnership came about?
Yes, thank you so much for saying all of my names. Like Kevin said, my name is Camille Alexandra Padilla Dalmau. I'm here in Puerto Rico, and my outlet is 9 millones, which means 9 million, representing the number of Puerto Ricans in the world. And I'm really grateful to be invited to talk about Proximate and our partnership, because it's been a very nurturing experience. And 9 millones, really what we focus, like Kevin said, is about solutions journalism, but also to connect people who want structural change for Puerto Rico. The way that I heard about Proximate was because Ben sent me a LinkedIn message, and he was like, hey, I saw this story about you. I want to tell stories about Puerto Rico. I have a budget. And I was like, that's all my favorite things. You want to collaborate? You have a budget? Great. And so he wanted to tell solution stories particularly. So I explained to Ben how we work. I'm not just a freelancer. We're a media organization, and one of our ways of generating revenue is by having media partnerships. And so I explained that, we're kind of like a package deal in terms of we can offer writers, we have a network of writers, and we also have an editor, like a local editor, but then the editing process that we do with Proximate is collaborative. So our local editors gives it that local eyes, and then we have the team in Proximate give us a perspective outside of Puerto Rico, which I have found is really great, because sometimes we don't explain things because it's obvious to us, but maybe for someone living in the US, you want to know more information about a certain topic. And part of what we want to do is foment those conversations between people in Puerto Rico and the US, because historically there hasn't been that dialogue centering Puerto Rican voices. But it's also important that people in the US know what's happening in Puerto Rico and advocate for the people in Puerto Rico, because, we don't have any voting rights, and the US Congress is the one creating the most important decisions. We have a fiscal board that the president appoints. So we really need that dialogue and to center the voices here. And then what also Noemi Jones does is that we do design. This collage was created by our designer, and we've also worked on a video. So we also work on distribution strategies. And for me, the partnership with Proximate has been really unique, and it has been really fulfilling and nurturing. First, because since the start, it was focused on long-term relationship. So it has really taught me that the value of, instead of just having one-offs partnership, then maybe it's better use of my time to find longer-term partners that we can really grow with, and then we don't have to always be looking for the next partner. And that has been from the start, like the way that the partnership was proposed was a series, and always with that long-term view. And that is the same way that we approach the community we work here, because part of what we do in 9 Millones is that we do these, we have like a community outreach methodology where we go to communities, we listen to them, and a lot of our ideas come from people in the community. And it's kind of like, oh, that same way that we treat the communities that we cover, then I should also have that expectation from the partners that I'm making. So that was really pleasant. And also, like I said, it's been very nurturing and transparent. The Proximate team is really open with everything that they're doing, with their progress on how they fundraise. And that has helped us too to learn. So it hasn't just been an editorial partnership, but also a partnership about learning how we can continue to sustain ourselves as media organizations. And I really think that they're embodying the values that they cover, and that they are also creating a model of what a regenerative partnership between news organizations in the global north and the global south can look like, because oftentimes, sometimes those partnerships can be quite extractive, and I don't feel like that at all with this partnership. So I'm really grateful about that. And we couldn't have done this story that you see here and the other story that we worked on in the video that we worked on without this partnership. And actually the writer of this story was recently laid off. And because of this partnership, we were able to offer them this new freelancer gig and help them kind of get back after being laid off from their full-time job. So I'm really grateful for that. And I want to talk a little bit about where we are moving forward, what stories we want to continue telling. We're really interested in, one, agroecology in Puerto Rico and agriculture in Puerto Rico. 80 to 90% of the food in Puerto Rico is imported. And there is really a movement and a history of these small farmers that have resisted industrialized farming. And we'd really like to look at that history and also the challenges that they face, because, agroecological farmers in Puerto Rico, the local Department of Agriculture here really doesn't look at them as farmers because of the practices that they use, which we know are more resilient against hurricanes and droughts. But because of the practices they have, they can't get certain certifications to get protection like insurance. And so we really want to look at that story. And we also are interested in participatory democracy, looking at the People's Assembly in Puerto Rico and what has happened to that. And most importantly, we're also thinking not only about stories, but about how do we promote dialogue? And we're really thinking, how can the Proximate community and the 9 Millones community create spaces where we can talk about these topics? Because as I said before, it's just really important that we have conversations so we can get to more of a mutual understanding of the situation in Puerto Rico. So that's basically the partnership. Again, I'm really grateful to be here and talk about it. And if anybody has any questions, I'll look at the chat and can answer them there.
And so I want to give a shout out to someone else who we have on the call today. They are another of our early media partners. This is Chloe Marshall from Red Insight. Red Insight is a media platform run by sex workers in the Netherlands. Their mission is to share knowledge, news, artwork, and perspectives that come from their own communities. We are currently partnering with them on a series that I'm personally very, very proud of called Working It, which explores creative ideas to give more voice and agency to sex workers around the world. So those are another one of the cool newsletters that we are currently fundraising for and which you can sign up for at our sign up link. Thank you for the people responding. Feel free to drop more in there. Yes, Magazine has been on my short list. We will now move on to our next speaker, who is Isabelle Clérié. Isabelle is a Haitian anthropologist and development professional who works to reclaim local narratives by leveraging the power and assets of communities in Haiti. From 2017 to 2019, she worked with the UN's Office of the High Commission for Human Rights to lead a civil society-led process to design Haiti's first national strategy for confronting past crimes and impunities. Isabelle is also the writer of a column for Proximate, Repairing Development. This column, which I have personally learned a lot from, takes a look at the harm that the global development and aid sector has caused around the world and the opportunities available for repair and localization. Isabelle, would you please join us and unmute?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Kevin. Like Kevin said, my name is Isabelle Clérié. I'm a Haitian anthropologist and development professional. I've spent most of my career as a consultant because I started very young as very grassroots. And so it was impossible to go from the grassroots point where I came and working with agencies, NGOs and development agencies that were wildly problematic. And it was even harder to do it as a Haitian in Haiti and witnessing that harm. It was 3 times as hard to conceive of working for an NGO in Haiti after everything that I have seen and witnessed, not just as a professional, but also just throughout my life of growing up in Haiti and seeing what development has ultimately done here. So I actually met Ben, how I started at Proximate. I met Ben last year at Opportunity Collaboration. And I think everybody's like meet Ben's story is very, very funny. And so mine as well. We were in a session and he was supposed to be facilitating on participatory impact metrics, which I had a lot to say about. And so he was like, hey, you know what? We just met, like I hadn't actually officially met. He's like, hey, can you get this? I'll be right back. And he like went to another group. And so he abandoned me to facilitate the impact metrics conversation, which was really funny. But then we sort of ended up chatting a little bit also. And so he mentioned the column and it was just a really interesting opportunity for me. And what I really appreciated about it is that it wasn't a push to talk about Haiti because it's really hard to talk about Haiti, especially currently in the current security context in Haiti. It's very hard to have an opinion about Haiti. However, I've been able to use a lot of my experiences of the things that I've seen and the things that I've learned in Haiti to sort of have a broader conversation about global development. And that's been the approach. And so in the column so far, I've called out development for their insanely unsuccessful history. If you can't tell, I have a bit of a sense of humor. And so I tend to be a little sarcastic in my piece, not sarcastic, but I send points. And I've touched on a lot of asset-based approaches, which has been really, really important and central to my work throughout the years of reclaiming local narratives. And so asset-based approaches that value existing capacity and assets and a way forward rather than starting from a place of deficiency and scarcity that just put people in a different position. I've also repeatedly addressed donors' misguided sense of ownership over the impact that they think their contributions have made. That's become a very, very big, prevalent problem for me in terms of how people have conversations about what their money should do. And so it gets very different. And so my next column will actually be a response to an SSIR piece, Ada, you know the one, by Mark Kramer and Steve Phillips. So the working title of that column is going to be When Wealth Oversteps. But I think what's been really amazing for me about working with Proximate is the fact that I've been able to be represented. I feel very represented very authentically in my writing at Proximate because, you know, I've worked with the UN. So a lot of the writing that I've produced for the UN has been, we'll call it revised. It's been UNified. So a lot of the things that I called out in a civil society process, you know, I said what civil society told me. I represented what was said to me, and it did not make it in a lot of like those voices were never represented in the final version of whatever the UN spewed out. So yeah, so it's been really interesting for me to have that. And in a lot of times that I've been trying to write about these kinds of issues, but trying to write about them very frankly, just call it out. Like the first line of my first column is development, you screwed the pooch, you know? So it's just being able to call that out in that way. And that's been really important to me. So anyway, so that's been one of the more interesting parts for me. And I think as a Haitian in Haiti, people who are texting me in Haiti, I had somebody, a former minister and sort of political jack of all trades having like an existential crisis at 4 a.m. After reading my column and then Rachel's column and then going down a rabbit hole of Proximate, like, what is all of this? I don't know what to do. So so that's been really interesting to have Haitian people reflecting with the content in that way. Anyway, so I'm really excited to be part of this space with you all, and I'm really excited to hear your questions and your comments.
Thank you so much, Isabelle. We are very excited to have you along with us and have been really enjoying your column. Please feel free to go check it out and make sure you read it. Isabelle also mentioned Rachel Kimber, who I also want to take a moment to mention. As I'm doing so, I will open our new Mentimeter. Wow, okay, cool. This one is, what other themes should we explore for columns? You heard a bit about Isabelle's column. We also have a column by Rachel, which is Equity Overhaul. This column explores the state of grassroots grant making in the United States and how we are attempting to shape equity within it. It is very incredible. I believe it is currently available on the site. Yeah, and so go check that out as well. Now, it is time for me to pass it on to our last speaker, who is guiding us through this cool little roadmap that we are on. Joana Ribeiro Mortari. Joana is originally from Brazil, where she co-founded the Movement for a Culture of Giving, which helped bring Giving Tuesday to Brazil. She is also the co-founder of Philo, Philanthropic Practices, an organization that offers coaching, training, and consulting services for individuals and organizations in Brazilian philanthropy. Joana is also the steward of Proximate Brazil, which is our first regional newsroom and first bilingual newsroom. So please, and por favor, go ahead and begin, Joana.
Thank you, Kevin. Love the por favor. Hello, everybody. I'm Joana. I speak actually from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, also known as Vancouver, where I have been living for 7 years. And all of that work that Kevin mentioned is done from here, before, during, and after COVID. So a lot of screen. It's been a pleasure to work, to be partners with Proximate. We met, I think, early in the game after they launched. I saw a first article about participatory budgeting in Brazil, which called my attention. And then I started to check the website. And soon after, I found a rebuttal about criticism for trust-based philanthropy that I really felt it was an opportunity for me to translate and make sort of like a version of it for the Brazilian, field of philanthropy. I have been writing about the importance of trust for the last 10 years, and it's just exciting to me to see the conversation gaining momentum all over the world over the last few years or so. So Proximate, a few years ago, I also started Philo, which is, as Kevin said, an organization that is more focused on practices in philanthropy that are coherent with the transformations that we want to get to. So really looking at the how we do things, and has a lot of synchronicity or a lot of in common with Proximate. In our first issue in Brazil, we published that article that I just spoke about. We did a couple of Q&As, one about community-led funds created after a mining dam in Brazil broke a few years ago in Brumadinho, and another one about with an incredible leader, a community-led organization called Baixada Institute, and has an incredible way of, they developed their incredible way of relating to donors in a way that they welcome the donors for a weekend in their community, and all the community participates in hosting the donors and feeding the donors and engaging them in conversations in a very truthful way that really transforms people around them. It's a very, very difficult thing for them to engage with, because as we know, donors are hard to come out of their ivy towers, but it has been very important to them. We launched Proximate Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, in April this year with a event that was more like a reflecting process facilitated by my partner Ana Bimioni and me. And so it wasn't like just talking about Proximate. We sat and we talked about the importance of writing in the creation of this new narrative and reflection and understanding of the steps we have to take to get to that philanthropy that really makes sense to us. So people were very excited about it. They wanted more. It was surprising to me. I thought it was a one-time deal. It seems like we're going to have more. But it was also very, very rewarding to see their engagement. And from then, Proximate has been getting more and more importance in Brazil. I think we're partnering with media partners also and getting it going very in different ways. I think, I was asked to keep this very short, and very slow for like me, the non-English speakers, the ESLs. So I think that's it, Kevin. Let me know if you have questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joanna. Yes, as Joanna mentioned, Proximate Brazil is our first and one of 3 present regional newsrooms that we have, that being Brazil, East Africa, and India, although East Africa is not released yet. And as well, we have more coming in the future. And then B, we held an event, which is part of what we call Proximate Together, that I don't think we talk about enough, which is where we go beyond just the journalism and the stories and actually put this into practice and demonstrate action. Thus far, we have hosted dinners in Seattle. We have hosted webinars in Brazil. We have hosted trainings in Uganda, and we are planning to do more dinners in Detroit, Boston, more events in Seattle, etc. So be on the lookout for those. Pass. I want to thank everyone who has spoken, and we have one final speaker today who I am super excited to introduce. She always has such great energy and makes me literally laugh out loud every time. This is Ada Williams-Prince. Ada led bold strategies to invest in women and girls of color at Pivotal Ventures. Prior to that, she was a director of special projects for One America, where she directed their women's rights policy program. Ada is also a member of Proximate's advisory committee and has been helping us develop our editorial strategy as well as our participatory governance. Ada, can you take it away and close us out?
Well, I am so excited to be here, and I cannot follow the speakers who have gone before me because it's such beautiful, beautiful work, and I am just so blown away. I also have props, as in my T-shirt, Decolonizing Wealth, which you will know is I have the book here because you'll note that the foreword is by Edgar Villanueva, who started Decolonizing Wealth Project, which is Edgar being a good friend of mine and also somebody I invested in while I was at Pivotal Ventures. So what are we here to talk about? Not Wakanda, which I could talk about for a very long time. We're actually here to talk about the fact that Proximate's work is really important, right? So the need to counter these toxic, dominant narratives, right? I don't know about you, but we are at a time that is a lot of people call a Kairos time. It's this time of transition and transformation. And so what I think is really important about Proximate is it's that we're at a time where regressive framing about how we solve problems is not the way. And I think this path forward that Proximate is putting out there is really important. Narrative change and storytelling can be powerful tools for social change. And as somebody who follows Octavia Butler very closely, who lives in this world of sci-fi and fantasy, I believe that all of this can change not just public opinion, but it can influence policy. It can shift mindsets. So because narrative is so important, as somebody who has children who are trying to influence them with, I'm a Gen Xer, so I influence them with movies and force them to watch things and read things that I like. I think it's a really important thing to have Proximate in the world, right? So here's the best part. I think that narratives can create a more just and inclusive society by challenging stereotypes, right? Not just because I love Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, but also because this type of challenging stuff can also mobilize support and frame issues and shape cultural and societal norms. So if you are unfamiliar with any of the stuff that has been shared today, Isabelle, Joana, Brazil, one of my favorite countries, but also everything that has been shared today, I think the best example of how to shift mindsets on over 50 billion years, I know I'm an exaggerator, I'm a Sagittarius, please bear with me, of toxic narratives on what is known as charity, on what is known as the dominant power structure. This is why this work needs to be done collaboratively, why the importance of participatory governance, the model that Proximate is developing, the role of readers in shaping Proximate's coverage, introducing this concept that Proximate is starting now, is called the Proximate Commons. This is going to be launched in September, and it's going to allow Proximate's readers to weigh in on the editorial direction and also vote on a part of Proximate's budget. It's just some of the things that I think is so important about living what we talk about. And so I just have to say that what Isabelle says is true. The funny way that we get to know Ben is just that. Like, I think I met him. I mean, I think I probably blocked it out due to like the trauma of it all, but I honestly think we met in on a bus at the OC. And I really was like not interested in getting to know this white dude. But I will tell you that he really would like got under my skin. Like, he did not let it go. And even though he wrote a book called Letting Go, he didn't let it go. And and then he became my brother. And then once he became my brother, I had to talk about dogs with him. And that was it. I really believe in how yes, we did facilitate a whole session together 2 days later. Which, you know, that's how you collaborate with people. It is about how we are all connected and touch each other's lives. And I then also became an advisory board member. So like, I'm all in, people. Like, that's how it goes. So I'm so happy to have been here today with all of you. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you more. I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin, my other brother from another mother, who claims to laugh at all of my jokes, but he never does in person. But that's okay. That's all right. I'm still working on it. Thank you for letting me have this moment to express my love and joy for this work.
No problem. Thank you so much, Ada. In person, I'm I'm like all cool and trying to maintain my personal, I'll be like, just detached. But yes, thank you, Ada. Thank you to Meg. Thank you to Isabelle. Thank you to Joanna. Thank you to Camille. And thank you to Ada and everyone that spoke as well. Thank you to all of you for joining us and listening to us talk for this last hour. And thank you for supporting our work and the things that we're trying to do. It means a lot to us, and we're trying to make the world a teensy bit better. So in service of that, really quick, I will breeze through what we have coming up next. What is Proximate's future? So obviously we'll be writing more stories. This will include columns, newsletters, special collections. You can keep up with those by signing up. I will drop the sign up link again at some point, signing up to said newsletters and subscribing. Today, actually, in fact, Beyond Democracy, our latest newsletter, Beyond Elections, our latest newsletter that we are doing in partnership with People Powered was released, and it will absolutely be live on the website after this call, and also posted on social media. Beyond that, we are also finalizing our governance. We have recently held a 3-hour meeting to define our values, and we have now came up with our cool participatory accountability circles and management circle and all those fun things that we will be diving deeper in. For those who are excited for that sort of thing, we will be posting more information about that as we go forward. And then lastly, and probably most importantly for every nonprofit, we are looking for people to resource our work. We are always interested in potential donors and financing of the sort from mission-aligned organizations. And I will also include our support us link for anyone who cares to drop a quick donation. So that is it. That is Proximate in a nutshell. This is how we have come. And hopefully we have a lot more to go in the future. I thank you all for joining me so much. Please feel free to hang out in the chat if you want to ask me any questions or learn anything else. And then as well, I will be sending a follow-up email that will include all of the links shared in the chat room, maybe some other useful stuff that I forgot to share. And appreciate your time today. Hope you have a great one after this and even better tomorrow.